Hello everybody. Today for math, we're going to do something a little bit different. We are going to do some math that's related to a project that I have been working on for the past couple weekends. And I'm going to kind of go over some ways that all these skills that we've been working on, multiplication, division, adding, subtracting fractions, mixed numbers, converting measurements, how it's all useful in the real world when you work on projects such as this, a little construction project. So there's my house. We've got a really cute little house. There's a shed that I built the first summer that we moved in because there's not much storage in the house. Got a nice little yard here in the front. But we had a fence. It had a lot of character, but it was fallen down, and it also was built kind of closer to the house, so our yard was made a little bit smaller than it needed to be. So what we did was we tore down the old fence, and you can see where the grass meets the dirt. That's where the old fence used to be. So we moved it out about 12 feet, and now we have a bigger yard for Coral to play in. And we've got a nicer, newer fence. Okay, so here's the plan. I'm going to go over some measurements and some calculations I had to make in building this fence. It's not done yet. I'm going to have you guys help me plan it and check my work a bit, and give you a sense of the math that was involved in this project. So the first thing that I needed to do was I needed to figure out the overall length of the fence. So from that post all the way over there by the tree to this post here by the chain link fence, which separates my house from my neighbor's house. Okay, so I had to figure out the length, and I'm going to give you that dimension, that measurement, and this is on the Google Doc as well. It's 49 feet and 6 inches. So 49 feet, 6 inches. The first problem that you need to do, the first bit of math you need to do, is you need to convert 49 feet and 6 inches into just inches. So how many total inches would that be? That is something that builders and carpenters often have to do, convert between feet and inches. When we're working on projects. All right, so that's the first thing. Now the next thing that the next problem says, where is the center of the fence? Okay, so how far is the center from each end of the fence? So this is a really important math skill, really useful when you're doing something like this or building a house. You want to know when you're placing windows, doors, where the center of a wall is, or where the center, in this case, of the fence is. So the reason that's important is because I've got this gate here, right? And I wanted the gate to be exactly in the center of the fence, right? So in order to do that, I needed to figure out where exactly, what was the center of the fence. I needed to mark it, and that helped me figure out where to place the fence and all these posts. All right. So knowing that the overall length is 49 feet and 6 inches, your job for problem number 2 is to figure out where the center of the fence is. So how many inches or how many feet in inches is it from that end to the middle? All right. That is problem number 2. And that's something that I actually had to do when I built this fence. So the problems get increasingly more difficult for this assignment. All right, so it should be a good challenge. The third problem says, how many fence posts does Mr. B need for his fence? Now, I know you can see visually here, and that's part of the reason I'm doing this, is so you get a sense, so you can picture this, and that may help you when you draw this out. Really highly recommend that you make a drawing of this on paper. You write out the dimensions that I'm sharing with you in order to solve the next couple of problems. So And by posts, what I mean are these 4x4 vertical posts right here. Okay, so this right here is pressure treated wood. It's it's called a 4x4. Okay, but it's actually 3.5 inches by 3.5 inches. So the width of it is 3.5 inches. Okay, and that's just the case with all building material. A 2x4 is actually 1.5 inches by 3.5 inches. 2x6 is actually 1.5 inches by 5.5 inches. So all you need to know here is that the dimensions of this, or the width of this post here, is 3.5 inches. All right. Okay. So your job is to figure out how many posts did I need to set. So here's another post. Okay. There's another post over there. Posts on the end. So the posts basically hold the fence up, and they are, you dig a hole and you pour in concrete and you put the fence in there, make it nice and straight and level. That's what holds the fence up. Okay. Some useful information here. Okay. Obviously there are posts on both ends of the fence, and very importantly, all right, and the spacing between them, right, is really important. You want it to be equal distance from one post to the next. Okay, so all those spaces between those posts want to be equal, and they can't be more than 8 feet. Right, a couple reasons for that. Part of it is the material that I used, that black wire fencing that you see right there. That comes in 8-foot sheets or 8-foot panels. So I couldn't make the distance from post to post more than 8 feet. So I had to be less than 8 feet. And also, if you made it the spacing between the posts more than 8 feet, then your fence would end up sagging. And as it is, I've made my spacing kind of longer than a lot of people do, but I put some little blocks at the ground level to kind of support them, so that hopefully the fence doesn't twist and sag over time. All right, so useful information here is you got a fence post on either side, on both sides, and then they're spaced at no more than 8 feet. Okay, so likely it's going to be between 7 and 8 feet. That's what I went for. And there's this gate in the middle, right? Now the spacing between these two fence posts that hold up the gate, we got the hinge side here, right here. This is where the hinge is, and this would be the latch side. I haven't put the latch on it yet, but this is where the latch would be. Okay. The space between those two posts is exactly 48 inches or 4 feet. Okay. So your job, and this is something I had to figure out as well before I went to the lumber store to get all the material for this. I had to figure out how many 4x4 posts do I need for this project. And that's what you need to do for problem number 3. Okay, using all that information. One little clue here is that as you're figuring that out, make sure you remember that you've got to include the actual width of the posts in your figuring, in your math. Okay? All right. So that one is going to be a little more challenging. This visual helps you, obviously. So use that. And the next problem, once you figure out how many posts are needed for this fence, the cost for each of those, you buy them as 8-footers, and I cut them down, but 8 foot, so they're 4x4 by 8 feet. 8 feet is typically the smallest length that you could buy for this type of material. And the cost is $16.47 for each of those 4x4 posts. All right. So your job for problem number 4 is to figure out how much I would need to spend on the posts for this fence. And that's a big part of building a project like this, is you've got to figure out the material and how much it's going to cost, and that sometimes determines how you're going to build the fence, right? So you could do repeated addition for that. You could do some multiplication. And the last problem, this one is going to be a good challenge, right? And this is a big part of this project, was figuring out what the exact spacing is going to be between each of these posts, right? Well, we know that the space between these posts for my gate is going to be 48 inches or 4 feet. But a big part of this project, initially when I laid it out, is to figure out how far to space these posts from each other. And the key here is that, again, they can't be spaced, they need to be less than 8 feet. And just as another clue would be that I wanted to go somewhere between 7 and 8 feet for the spacing. And I wanted them to be exactly the same. That just kind of makes the fence look better if you don't have random spaces between your fence posts. Okay, so I want them to be exactly the same. The space between here and here, the space between those two posts, I want them to be exactly the same. So your job is to figure out, given the overall length of the fence and the dimensions of each fence, or each fence post. Remember, the fence posts are 3.5 inches wide, and the fact that there's a gate right in the middle of it that is 48 inches from inside to inside. Your job, using all that information, is to figure out the space between those two posts, which should be the same as the space between those two posts, and so on. All right, that was some of the most challenging math that I had to do for this project. And again, hopefully this gives you a sense of how